And going back more for you with the doctor versus naturopath thing, like when you said you were making that decision on like what they did and didn't let you use, like for tools wise to be able to like work with, was that to be able to work with patients?
I think it's because one thing I realized was that volunteering in the hospital for 2 years, I realized I never wanted to be in a hospital. It was not a very healing space for me. I mean,
Hmm.
I think there's tremendous work done there. I have tremendous respect for nurses. Actually, I think they're like the top of the respect pinnacle of the pyramid for me. Um, but it's the system in which it's created, and there's certain things you might not like, but they have to be in place.
Hmm.
And I just realized that who I was did not fit into that mold. And
Hmm.
I also realized that if I wanted to be part of the public healthcare system, well, then I'm able to make a big impact. Albeit I might only be able to see people for 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm a personable person. I believe I like to connect
Hmm.
with people. I like to really understand the nitty gritty, what's underneath the surface. When we're peeling off the layers, right?
Hmm.
I feel like it's very difficult for me to do that within that scope. But I mean, there comes a price with free universal healthcare, right?
Hmm.
There's a price that comes with that. And I think sometimes patients misunderstand that. They say, "Oh, my doctor didn't have time for me," or "My doctor prescribed me this medication before even looking much further," or "I was referred to the specialist." Well, these are all great options, actually, because you actually had those choices and you didn't have to pay a dime for it, and you got to see a physician that gave you or provided you with something that was in his toolbox.
Hmm.
I'm not expecting a physician to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to make you an intravenous line of vitamins and minerals right now," or "Hey, let me just go in the back and concoct a herbal tea or tincture." No, there's no time for that. And like you said, it's not actually within the scope of practice.
Hmm.
I think that the way the system's set up is also to help people when they're ill,
Hmm.
not when they're not feeling quite all right. When you come to the doctor, I'm like, "Yeah, something's not, I don't really know what it is. I'm not feeling at my best." The system's not quite set up for that. And also the testing, the diagnostics that we have in our system, they're not set up for that either. If you take a look at people's, something as simple as a thyroid marker, known commonly as a TSH, a thyroid stimulating hormone, um, the range is actually fairly large. It's from like 0. I think 4 or 5 to 5.2 or 5.4. That's a really big range. And why is that such a big range? Because if you take, let's say 60, 70% of the population, right? And there's a lot of unhealthy people, and there's also a lot of healthy people,
Hmm.
and you put them on a statistical bell curve, you're going to find this broad range of what's considered to be normal, what's the mean, what are the standard deviations, what's the median between that. And when you get a test done and you fall in within that category or within that parameter, oh, well, then you're considered normal. But that might not necessarily be your normal, right? Because
Hmm.
you're a very unique individual, and you have a unique upbringing, and you have a unique genetic code, and you have a unique nutritional intake and unique way of thinking and dealing and reacting and perceiving and coping with things. And I think that's also at times sometimes where naturopathic medicine is a little bit weaker in the evidence-based medicine field. Like it's interesting to me that I personally believe that personalized medicine is 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 the pinnacle that we achieve for. I think that really
Hmm.
doesn't matter what kind of medicine you do, but you really personalize it to that person, right?
Hmm.
The trouble with that though is that when you take that into consideration, like taking a human being into consideration, you think about all the variables I just mentioned, right? All the factors that make up that person, who they are. It's really difficult to assess something research driven,
Hmm.
very difficult to take into consideration, um, like if you took a drug or if you took a particular therapy for a certain period of time, and let alone analyzing the research studies, such as like, who sponsored it, how many people were in the sample size, how many
Hmm.
dropped out, why did they drop out, if they took a therapy let's say they took vitamin C. Well, what form of vitamin C was it? Or they took vitamin E. What form of vitamin E was it? Taking all those specifics aside, you're just looking actually at the person. There's so many variables that are difficult to control as a researcher that it makes sense that some naturopathic modalities are very difficult to assess.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, but that's also in this like double-edged sword sort of analogy. It's also the strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was my digression there.